Greetings, Terrarians. Chaos here.
Just kidding. Greetings, Terrarians. Chaos here. As y'all can tell, I have a brand new mic. I'm absolutely loving it. It sounds way better than the old one. I hope you guys enjoy it too. So as you all could see, I'm not currently in Terraria right now. For those of you that don't know what this is a program, a third-party program called TEdit. And basically, it's a Photoshop tool for Terraria. You can do a ton of things. Place blocks, place wires, paint things. You could select and delete something, or you could copy it, paste it to a new location. You could even change your world's spawn point or spawn in NPCs. Town NPCs, that is. Stuff like that. I won't go too much into detail on what TEdit is. Mostly because I'm not wanting this video to be a intro guide to TEdit. If that's something you all would be interested in, a how-to for TEdit, make sure to let me know in the comments and I could throw it into my video rotation. But for now, I want this video to be more of how to innovate Terraria in unique ways using TEdit. And I'm just going to show you some things that I did in Harbinger that you could only do with a mods like Cheat Sheet or TEdit that allow you to break furniture tiles. And I'll get more into that later. But first, I want to give a couple of disclaimers. As I said before, TEdit is a third-party program. It's not developed by Relogic, it's developed by Binary Construct. And I'll leave a download link in the description to this video if you want to check it out or use it for yourself. But what I mean by it being third-party software is if you encountered bugs or if it corrupts your world save or anything like that, the bugs that you encounter may very well likely be the result of TEdit. I don't encounter them often. I'm just saying if you do, maybe don't go crying to Relogic about bugs. Oh, I found bugs, because really you didn't. And they're going to just turn you away and throw your bug report out because it's probably something caused by your TEdit use. Like I said, that has only happened to me once or twice, maybe. I've never had a world corrupt. I know players that have, so it's always a good idea to back up your saves beforehand. Always a good idea. Before you use any sort of third-party software, any sort of inventory editor, or if you use any mods, it's always a great idea to back up your Terraria save files. So what I'm going to be talking about today is something that I call furniture cropping. I've also seen people call it furniture clipping, stuff like that. It's been something I've been doing for the past 2 years or so, maybe. I've seen it becoming more and more popular on Reddit, TCF, Twitter. I believe its popularity is coming from Rulik. He's not very active anymore, but when he was, he did use furniture cropping quite a bit. And so what furniture cropping is if you have a sprite, and I'll just grab a furnace here for an example. Help if I spelled it right. There we go. And if I just place the furnace down, and in TEdit it doesn't have to be placed on the floor, you can literally place things anywhere. And if I take my pencil tool and using tile mode, I just delete tiles around the furnace, you'll see that everything here has been deleted, but this single tile remains. So if I just save this and hop into Terraria, you'll see that we have the furnace tile here with everything else around it deleted. And just as an example, I have a normal furnace here. So what use is this furniture clipping or furniture cropping? Well, I use it quite a bit for making custom furniture. You can make custom lights, basically custom anything. If you like a part of a furniture and you want to use that as a whole, in a part of a whole, of something you're making custom or unique, you could go ahead and just take segments of different furniture pieces and kind of cobble them together into whatever you're trying to create. You could also make particle creators, and I'll get more into that later. You can create hidden monster spawners. By deleting all but one of the tiles, it's much easier to hide a monster statue. Same goes with the mana and heart statues. You could also create one block cannons. They won't be able to rotate, or in the case of the portal gun station, change the color, but you can shoot from a single block. You could also hide music boxes better, and I'll get more into that later as well. And then the last thing that I really use this for is something I call the tile update switch, and I'll get to that at the end of the video. Now there are some drawbacks to using Tiedit in this fashion. Aside from the bug issue that you might encounter, for example, I have once created a mechanism using bubble machines to create bubbles, but I cropped out all the tiles except for the one that produces the bubbles. I filled the area that they were in with water, and I was constantly draining that area with pumps and refilling it with pumps, and somehow that Tiedit created a crash. Every time I would activate the pumps and it'd start draining water and filling water, the game would crash. So there are bugs that can be associated with using furniture cropping. They're not common in my experience. I've only encountered it once or twice. But the other drawback is they're very delicate. So you see, if I place some tiles next to a furnace that hasn't been cropped, obviously you could just build around it with no issue whatsoever, unless you were to, say, remove blocks beneath it. Then it would break and pop off just like that. But the cropped furniture is far more delicate. So if I were to even just place a single tile next to it, it's going to break. And that delicacy is a drawback and a strength, but I'll get more into that later. Another thing I want to mention before I get further into this is that furniture that has been cropped can still be used with wire. So say, for instance, I have here this lamp that has been cropped. The area in red is where the sprite would normally be. I can use a wire to turn this lamp on or off, but when it does, any tile that was in the space where the sprite would normally be, so anywhere that this red wall is touching, like these two copper plating, will kind of freak out in terms of their texture. Nothing will break, but the texture will kind of freak out a little bit. And that's just something to keep in mind. You can use wires, but if it were to change the state of the lamp, because this is technically two different sprites, so it's switching this sprite to this sprite, so it's trying to change tiles here to a new sprite, but obviously they don't belong. So just keep in mind that if you use wiring in this fashion, it's gonna look a little funky. Another thing to note is that when you crop furniture, if it has an environmental use to it, like fountains or monoliths or music boxes, they will provide that environmental feature regardless of how you crop the furniture. So if I put this blood fountain here and I just go ahead and delete tiles around it but just leave one tile floating, you'll see that when I go into Terraria, we have the blood fountain just floating here and working. The water is red, it's doing its job. If I break it, the water will go back to normal. Also in Terraria, there are furniture tiles that produce particles, and here's just 3 examples of it. I actually need to wire up this chimney and toggle it before it'll produce smoke. There we go. So we have here 3 different furniture sets that produce smoke, bubbles, in balloons. And actually, if we want to crop these in T-Edit to produce the particles, we can. So I'll just go ahead and switch back to T-Edit. And you see here, I have the furniture sets. I'm just going to copy them and paste them just floating in the air up above. And what I'm going to do is start cropping them. Now when it comes to particle producing furniture sets like these, only one tile will produce the particles. So if the sprite is a 3 tall and 3 wide, so a 3x3, the upper left hand corner is the tile that will produce the particles. So if I delete everything in that balloon machine except for this upper left hand corner right here, it's going to produce balloons from this center space, and they're just going to float up. The same thing with the chimney, because it's also 3x3. I'm going to just remove these. And for the balloon machine, since it's 3 wide and 2 tall, the sprite that will produce bubbles, sorry, it's a bubble machine, will be actually dead center on the bottom level. So instead of the upper left, it's actually going to be down here. So if I just go ahead and paint the walls here so we could see it easier in game, we'll have this here. And I just zoomed out there so that I could actually see the chimney. As you can see, the sprite in the upper left hand corner actually has no texture to it, so it's completely invisible unless you look further back in T-Edit, which shows a map view. You'll also be able to see the chimney in game on the map, even though you can't see it in game outside of the map. So I'm just going to go back to Terraria, and you can see that these tiles are still producing particles. So we have here the red spaces where I deleted the textures. Then you could see a texture here. That's what's producing the balloons. This one's producing bubbles. And this invisible one, just because it doesn't actually have a sprite, is producing smoke. And this is precisely how I have all of those smoke generators that you see in a lot of my builds, or in Harbinger in particular. People have been asking, how do you get the smoke? This is literally it. But just keep in mind that it's producing smoke one to the right and one down, even though the tile's technically here. And knowing which tile produces particles, you could do use the same knowledge in reverse to have a tile set that doesn't produce particles. The way that I really use this is by with music boxes. I like to have the custom music in my maps, but I don't necessarily like seeing the music notes just floating around in if I have it hidden in complete darkness. So I'm just going to show an example of that right now. I'm hiding a music box that's on in some shadow painted crystal block. And I'll just do the same thing over here, except I will crop this one. And with music boxes 2x2, the particle is being produced by the upper left hand corner. So if you crop everything else, like this, you'll have a music box that produces the music you want without the particles. And I'll just go ahead and show that to you in game. So as you can see here, we have a music box that's hidden in the shadow paint, but it's still producing the music notes. It could be distracting. On the right, it's been cropped. While I forgot to paint the music box itself, you can see it's no longer producing particles. And same down here, this one's not producing particles either. The last thing that I wanted to cover today is something that I call a tile update switch. It's a device that will detect whenever a tile around it has changed. If it's been placed, removed, destroyed, or converted to a different kind of tile, anything like that, the switch will activate. And it's something I used several times. I created this technique just for Harbinger and used it several times throughout. It's how you saw if you pick up the chalice in the holodeck and it progressed part of the story. That's the tile update switch. If you used a rocket launcher to destroy a circuit, well, obviously there aren't any rocket or explosive pressure pads, so that was actually done with the tile update switch as well. You could even use it to detect when you convert a world from normal into hard mode, which I'll show an example of at the end of this. There are some cons to using the tile update switch, and basically what that is the switch can only be used once. It's a very visual thing. There's going to be a lot of particle dust produced from it. It's also very loud. You can hear all of the things breaking when the switch is used. And it takes up a bunch of space on the tile layer. So it's not like a wiring that uses a wiring layer. This actually takes up the furniture tile layer. So you can't place anything in front of them. You can't run this update switch through walls or anything fancy like that. So it can be kind of difficult to work with. And again, since it's using furniture cropping, it's delicate. But that delicacy is actually how it works. So I'll just go ahead and break that down for you. Let's just look for a nice sized piece of deco here. We'll just grab... this will be pretty obvious. Just grab this jungle decoration here. So if we just place this down, and you can use any furniture that you want, and we just come out like this, and then at the end of it, if I place a boulder just like that, and let's grab some copper plating. I like the way copper plating looks. If we just place this beneath the boulder and put some yellow pressure plates in it, like that, because yellow pressure plates will be tripped by NPCs, and the boulder when it's falling is technically considered an NPC. And I'll just throw down some lanterns, I guess. And we'll just do the chandelier. Why not? And wire the pressure plate up to whatever I want activated, like this. When I go in game, you will see that I have everything that I placed here. So these decoration tiles are just floating in the air. That boulder is just floating next to them over these pressure plates. When I place any sort of tile next to this, it's going to break, which will cause this one to break. That'll break. All of these will break. And this, the boulder doesn't break. But if you were to remove tiles under a boulder or whack it with a pickaxe, instead of getting destroyed, it turns into that NPC and just falls like a standard boulder would. So if I place this tile here, all of that breaks, the boulder falls, hits the pressure pads, and turns off the chandelier. But obviously that's not very discreet. There's all these floating blocks there. It looks ugly. You're like, what is going on? Why are these blocks just floating up here? It's not very appealing to the eye. So while I said that you could do this with anything, there are some things that you can keep in mind. I could make this with just the chandeliers if I wanted to, just like this. And I could actually furniture crop to where this tile, upper corner, is used. And it hardly has any sprite to it at all. There's a teeny tiny square in the corner. So it's practically invisible. So that's one way you could hide these switches, is by using segments of tile that don't actually have sprites. A thing to bear in mind with that, if I were to use the chandeliers, even if they're cropped, when they break, every single one of them is going to drop a chandelier item. So it's just going to flood the place with items. Not what I'm after. So I'm going to look for something that doesn't drop any items. I can't use rocks or boulders because those will spawn worms. I don't want worms. So if I go in here and I look for deco, there's actually some furniture that won't spawn any critters, it won't drop any items, and it has invisible tiles to it. So like all of these rock ones will spawn worms. I don't want any of those. These ones will drop coins, don't want any of those. But if I were to take like this broken chandelier here, and as you can see, this tile right here has no sprite to it at all. So if I were to just copy that space and just get rid of everything else, and now I could just paste this chandelier like this, and I'll just bring it down to the floor right here, and just so I could visually see it, I'll put another chandelier next to it, and I'll go in game, and I'll show you what it looks like in game. So now we have a block update switch that is completely invisible. You can't see it whatsoever. And because it's a deco item, it won't drop a piece of furniture for you to pick up. And because it's not a natural deco item, it won't spawn a critter. So if I were to just break this here, it'll break everything in the chain and turn off that chandelier. Just like that. And just to show you other ways that you can use it, I'll go ahead and let's put a wall here, like this. Get rid of those tiles, I don't need them. And I'm going to look for grass. Okay, so grass is fragile in the fact that you can shoot it through a wall with an explosive and destroy it, which can trigger a block update switch. But depending on the grass I use, items can drop. Like if I were to use a mushroom would drop. If I were to use just standard grass, it can spawn bugs. I'm not really interested in that. The flowers, however, do not drop anything, do not spawn anything. So if I use flowers, that's my primary choice when it comes to an explosion related block update. So just as an example, I'll go ahead and place a, let's do a mine right here and go back in game. Now you'll see that when I walk on this mine, the explosion will reach through the tile, break the flower, which will cause the tile update switch to activate. And that's how you can use explosions to trigger wires. And the last example I would like to give is a tile conversion, which you can use a contaminator to activate the tile update switch. Or, and this one's the one I'm really excited to show you. I'll just give myself a chest here. Inside the chest, I'm going to put a guide voodoo doll. Save that. I need to spawn me a guide. Oops. So we'll just go to NPCs, select the guide, add him, and then I'll just place him down here. And I need some lava. I think y'all might see where I'm going with this. And I need to move my own spawn point right down here as well. Okay, so I'm gonna just go back into deco, find that chandelier again. Where is it? There we are. Now I need to find the middle of my world. Because, you know, when the Wall of Flesh is killed, a V will spawn Hallow and Crimson/Corruption, and it'll convert everything in that V. So, I think this was the middle, so I'm just going to go ahead and hope this is right. And up here, I'm just going to... Actually, I don't even need that chandelier. I'll just grab a boulder and just place the boulder down. And I'm going to grab some stone, because stone converts into Hallow or Corruption whenever hard mode is reached. I'm just going to place it around the boulder like that. I'll do a little bit longer just in case it grows some stalactites. I don't want it to accidentally make my boulder fall prematurely. Copper plating. Pressure plates. And I'll just run this out to here as an example. Throw down a tile here. And I'm just going to put a door right there. Now if I aimed this right, and I think that looks like it's going to be within the V, I might need to readjust the video and line it up. But when I kill the Wall of Flesh, it should activate the tile update switch. We'll go ahead and give that a test. Goodbye guide. Got the Wall of Flesh come in. I didn't realize how low I was, so I'll just kill him real quick. Now that he's dead, you'll see that this door has opened. And the reason that is opened is because we progressed into hard mode, and this group of stone converted into Hallow stone, and it dropped the boulder, activating the pressure plates, which now detected that we went from pre-hard mode into hard mode, opened the door. It's something that I plan to use in a future adventure map I'm super excited for. I hope you guys are excited for that too. Finally have a way to detect when we transition through wiring. Very exciting. And that's pretty much all that I wanted to talk about today. The video probably went a little bit longer than I wanted to, or had originally planned, but that's okay. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more TEdit tutorials, please let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you'd like to see more content from me, subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you all later. Happy building.